So recently I put out a video where I described Calico as being the most chill of all of the tile layers that I was comparing. And I got 2 comments essentially saying the same thing, that I was crazy for thinking that Calico was the most chill out of all 3. And that's what leads me to make this video. And that's number 1 of 19 unpopular knee-jerk board game adjacent opinions. And this video is more of a conversation starter, I guess. So right this second, what is the most unpopular opinion you have in the board game space? And then as you go along, feel free to roast my opinions in the comments. People do, whether I say you can anyways, but I'm giving you the permission to do it here. This is the forum. And I have that opinion on Calico. You're just grabbing a tile and placing a tile. It's not that big of a deal. In Cascadia, you're choosing from a multitude of options. You can play a pine cone down to mix up the tile and the token that you choose. And then the play area continues to grow and grow and give you more and more options as you go along. That's why Calico's more chill. My second unpopular opinion is the idea that the average rating in 7th Citadel, sitting at 8.7, is insane. This game is a boring, unfair story on rails that presents itself as this big open world experience. Unpopular, I know. Moving on to number 3, I prefer the Great Western Trail 1st edition art over 2nd edition. I had seen somebody compare it to PlayStation 2 artwork. I guess maybe. I like it. I loved PlayStation 2. I played a ton of PlayStation 2 as I suppose it would be a young adult, but either way, I enjoy PlayStation 2, and there's something, odd and quirky about that original art design that's going to have me keep that copy no matter what. Opinion number 4 is Wingspan absolutely slaps. It is a great game. It was one of the originals for me, and I will play it at any time. And Wingspan Asia for like a 2-player standalone game is also completely awesome. This might be an unpopular opinion amongst board game enthusiasts. Number 5 is Wingspan sitting above Root on the top 100 is absolutely crazy. While Wingspan is good and I really enjoy it, the brilliance of Root should absolutely surpass what Wingspan has created. I marvel at the design and the interconnectedness, and arguably how the game does not break in the midst of all of these factions functioning completely differently. It is it's one of the design marvels in the board game space, and it belongs above Wingspan. Games with more than 3 take too long unless I'm playing Root. I honestly prefer most games at 2. That is naturally kind of the game group that I play the most with, but anytime I add in a 2nd or 3rd player, in fact, we play Castles of Burgundy, for example, up to 4 sometimes, and it just feels like it drags and it takes too long. Although Castles is the one where I think 3 is better because of the other side of the board, but 4 is too many just because it drags on. If you have 4 fast players that know the game, that's great, but most games 3 and below, and my favorite player count is 2. Number 7, no food, maybe drink, but kind of like off to the side on the board game table. I know. Board game nights, some, take those as being times to drink and be merry with friends. I'm there to win, and I want to preserve the sanctity of this beautiful game that I have brought over. And if you're eating over it, I'm going to be sweating the whole time and won't be able to pay attention to the game. That's just me. Number 8, roll and writes are awesome. Some people really don't like this idea of like writing on a game and throwing it away and using paper and not having all those wonderful pieces. I think pound for pound, roll and writes give you such great bang for their buck. The combo-tastic nature is unbelievable. Fleet the Dice game, by the way, I absolutely love. Just an FYI. Number 9, this is crazy because this is how I started the channel. Too Many Bones is a crazy waste of money. I honestly think this chest behind me with all of the neoprene and PVC and chips and dice in it, I mean, it's a lot of money. I don't want to even add it up, but it's pretty insane and just, honestly ridiculous. Number 10, Too Many Bones is probably my favorite and best solo board game of all time. Yes, it does play up to 4, but I much prefer it as a solo adventure. I think it's a really great thinky puzzle, and when others get involved, similar to my other observation on anything above 3, it just runs too long. But that's not the point. The point is, as much as it's a complete waste of money, and you could technically get the same exact experience with cardboard for half the price or even less, it's still a wonderful game in its own right, and one in which that has infinite replayability if you buy enough of the stuff. Hot take number 11, Heat is boring. That's right. It's not that interesting to me. I suppose as you kind of play the advanced version, what is it, with like extra parts or something like that, or upgrades, it gets a little more interesting. I just didn't necessarily see the appeal. In fact, I do have a video on it quite a while ago where I compare it to Candyland. If that might tell you how much that might tell you what I feel about it. But certainly an unpopular opinion, Heat is beloved by the community, and the new expansion does not interest me whatsoever. There's not going to be any Heat coverage on this channel. Number 12, I wasted way too much money buying everything Marvel Champions, and I'm glad I stopped the moment we hit X-Men. Although X-Men arguably is much better for me because, from like a nostalgic perspective, I grew up with those movies and the cartoon and all of that stuff. But it collects dust. It sits under a chair right behind me. I never, ever get it out. I felt like I had to buy all of the stuff because I looked at deck lists, and deck lists needed a card from Valkyrie or a card from Hulk and this, that, and the other. And it really locks you into having to buy all of the different hero packs if you want to make that cool list that somebody had put out. And I still like it, and I think it's a great game, and it may show up on the channel someday. I just regret spending all of the money to get everything, but at the same time, I don't know that I would want it without everything, if that makes sense. Either way, I have not gotten enough play, and I regret it. Unpopular opinion number 13 is I like the idea of these giant miniature kind of campaign-y games more than actually playing them. I think in general they're obtuse, tons of rules overhead. I think of Aeon Trespass and even though Gloomhaven technically isn't a miniature game, but it's kind of on there. And actually Gloomhaven is a perfect case study, as I much prefer that as a digital version. These giant boxes and tons of rules overhead and pretty plastic parts that just cost way too much. I feel like the return on investment, unless you invest your entire life into something like that for months, you're not getting the return on investment on Aeon's Trespass Odyssey by playing it a few times. That has to be a lifestyle game for you. And that's just not something I'm willing to do. All right, I might get flamed for this one more than anything, including my wife, if you're watching. Number 14 is Azul is boring. That's right, I said it. And this is base Azul. We've played Queen's Garden, and my wife is obsessed with Azul. I just find it boring. I don't find it particularly interesting. I kind of feel like I'm filling out a spreadsheet as I draft those tiles and drop them into their slots. It just doesn't do it for me. Azul is boring. Number 15, deck building is the best mechanic. Prove me wrong. I get, the reaction to this one might tell me a whole lot about the audience out here. Catan being ranked at 554 is criminally underrated. I think it might have been flamed by snobbish board game elitists in their rankings after they've evolved past it. But Catan has done a ton for the hobby. And as I look up and down that list, there's so many games I would replace and put Catan over. That brings me to number 17. The board game hobby can be possibly filled with elitist, gatekeeping snobs. That's right. You started with Everdell or Ticket to Ride or Wingspan or even Catan, and now in those Reddit posts you sit there and flame them. Deep down inside, you'd still play them, but it's just not cool to any longer. So I take offense to people poo-pooing games in which that brought them to the hobby in the first place. Number 18, Dinosaur Island Roarin' Right is the best dinosaur island / world. If you haven't played it, it gives you everything that you would ever want out of any of those games in a much smaller box and with virtually no setup relative to those regular games. It's a great game, by the way. Go check that one out. Totally underappreciated. And the number 19 unpopular opinion about board games is the Unmatched system is a highly overrated, uninspired money grab where the IPs in which they use, the vast majority of them are public domain and completely boring, and the rest are like Marvel. I said it. Unmatched is not a good game. All right, so I do have a bonus for you. Number 20 is pineapple does have a place on pizza. It does. I'm never going to get a pineapple pizza of any sort as the feature pizza. As a little side pizza, you know, you take a slice or so out of that pizza, but you still have kind of a base standard, you know, whatever it is. Pineapple has its place. So for you gatekeeping elitist snobs out there that I was talking to earlier, you're probably also the people that say you don't like pineapple on pizza, but secretly you probably take a slice if it's there. Let's be honest. All right, so that is it. That was my knee-jerk unpopular opinion list. What is your list? Give me the top 3, 4, 5, whatever in the comments. Like, let it rain. What are the things in which you love or loathe that the majority of people might disagree with you on? On top of that, I look forward to you flaming my unpopular opinions in the comments. With that said, thanks for being here. Have a great week.